Good evening, everyone, and we'll call this council meeting to order. And I want to welcome everybody back. We had a nice break after an extremely busy fall, and I think everybody's eager and ready to get going on a very busy and productive 2020. So again, welcome everybody, and I'll ask for calling this meeting to order, and I'll call for a moment of silence. And while we have a lot to think about in this moment, former Mayor Malcolm and his family, we certainly send along our condolences to them and our wishes for their comfort over the next while. And the families and the victims of the plane disaster in Iran, and certainly the families and the first responders impacted by the fires in Australia. I'm pleased to say that JP's family is fine. They're out of danger. Thank you. Please be seated. Scugog is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. Today, we acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic Indigenous connection to this land and recognize the contributions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, our province, and our country as a whole. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We had a closed session before this public session tonight, and all we did was approve the minutes of the December 16th closed session meeting. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in this public meeting tonight? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on item 8.1 and staff report Dev 2020-001, Willow Tree Farms, as I had worked on that project previously.
What was the agenda item again?
It's 8.1 and it's our staff report number Dev.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Seeing none, we have the statutory public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under section... Oh, I'm sorry, I missed announcements. Okay, we'll go to announcements. Any announcements from council? Councillor Watton, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to once again announce that Cartwright Sports and Rec are hosting their annual stand-up comedy night on Friday, February 7th from 8 till 10 at the Blackstock Community Center. Tickets are $25 in advance and $30 at the door, and I have some, and they can also be picked up at Clearwater Pools on 7A Highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, hockey here. I'd like to congratulate Ty Delandria of Port Perry, Ontario, a world champion junior today, back from down 3-1 to beat Russia 4-3. He is a Dallas Stars draft pick. He's playing in Flint, Michigan, but he will be in Dallas in short order. I'd like to congratulate Kirsten Walsh of Blackstock, who worked the lines at the All-Star game in St. Louis for the 3-on-3 won by Canada's women over the United States. Her goal is to be full-time in the NHL someday, and we wish her the absolute best in pursuit of that. And the Tyler Hanson Memorial Street Hockey Tournament for 2019 raised more than $7,500 for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of North Durham and Sick Kids PACT. So congratulations to everyone there.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. You sounded like you might have been a sportscaster at one time. Thank you, and we will be doing something special for our world champion at some future date. We're just trying to get a date where he will be in town, so that will be good news. Anybody else? Councillor Keysbrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank our Regional Chair, John Henry. He came to speak at the AGM for the Blackstock Agricultural Society last week, January 23rd. Gave a lot of really valuable updates to everybody about broadband strategy, farming alliance, climate adaptation, and so on. He also talked about the region's wish to incorporate a sustainable Pickering Airport where the 8,700-acre site would include support for Durham Region's largest and most valuable economic drivers, and that's agriculture. So he stated he'd like to find the common ground between aviation and agriculture. I thought it was interesting that JFK's has urban farming. They have the world's first blue potato farm at their airport, and at O'Hare Airport in Chicago, they have the largest apiary in any airport, and they produce over 1,200 pounds of honey out of their airport. So I thought it was really interesting ideas that Chair Henry brought forward, and I just want to thank him for taking the time. He's a busy guy, but we appreciate him coming and being there to support our AGM. Thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
I just wanted to let everybody know that on February 22nd, the Coldest Night Walk for Homelessness is being organized by North House, and it will be leaving the Port Perry United Church at 5 p.m. and there's Facebook web connections for that to look at how to join in on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, a couple of weeks have passed since we lost our first mayor, Lawrence Malcolm. Lawrence Malcolm was the first mayor of Scugog Township from 74 until 1978, and then he returned as a regional councillor from 1981 to 1988. Prior to his being the first mayor of Scugog, he was the reeve of Cartwright, which is your ward, Councillor Keysbrink, Ward 4. And during his time in politics, he was instrumental in getting the community hall in Nestleton built, and also the refurbishing from a outdoor rink to an arena in Blackstock. So that is a long time ago, as we all know. Being the first mayor of Scugog, I'm sure you can all understand that with 4 former communities, that there would be a lot of bylaws to be amalgamated as well, and employees, contracts or agreements with employees, and so that was quite an undertaking back in 1974. So we certainly all send our deepest condolences and sympathies to his family, and the funeral was last week. I would also like to announce the Polar Plunge, which was on the weekend. There was a really good turnout. They had 38 plungers, and I felt their pain. I've done it 6 times, and that's as much as I'm going to do. But anyway, I don't have a number on how much money they made for the hospital, but it was very well attended and everybody had a good time. I'd also like to offer congratulations to the volunteers that were honored at the Mayor's Levee, and thank you, Council, for all being there, and thank you to the staff for organizing it. It was a very nice afternoon. Also like to thank the Scugog community for their generosity and support of Operation Scugog, so that many families and singles were not forgotten at Christmas time and were well fed thanks to our community. The region, I got a couple of announcements from the region in that they had made a delegation to ROMA, which is Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and they highlighted in their delegation the importance of rural transit in Durham region and broadband in the rural areas of Durham region. So we certainly thank them for taking that message once again to the province. It comes from all areas. Certainly our staff and myself and others have taken that message to the province and just keep plugging away at that particular message. Also, I've spoken to a number of people who congratulate us on the dog park and say how delightful it is and how enjoyable it is for their dogs and for their owners. So thank you, Carol, to you and your staff for seeing that forward. Thank you. Anything else? Staff, any announcements? Okay, then now we will move on to the public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Valerie Cranmer of Valerie Cranmer and Associates on behalf of Willow Tree Farm for the property located at 975 Regional Road 21. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decision will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views, either in person or in writing, prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog. Everyone present has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from side conversations. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all those present who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing so that staff can assure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting to provide written comments before council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT for short, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision on these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with the provision of the Planning Act. I will now ask Robin Prentice to provide information regarding the application and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Prentice, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this present public meeting, as you mentioned, is to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and obtain comments from both council and the public. An application for a zoning bylaw amendment was received on behalf of Willow Tree Farm for the property at 975 Regional Road 21. I will provide a brief overview of the application, but the applicant's planning consultant will follow with a more detailed presentation. The purpose of the proposed application is to permit a range of agricultural-related and on-farm diversified uses to recognize the existing on-farm market and to facilitate some of the applicant's future plans for cold storage and an education facility, among others. The subject property is located within the Greenbelt Protected Countryside and is designated agricultural, natural core area, and natural linkage area in the township's official plan. The property is currently zoned agricultural with a hold and environmental protection. The proposed amendment would apply a site-specific exception to the agricultural zone on the property to permit, as I said, a range of agricultural-related and on-farm diversified uses with specific provisions related to such uses. No objections or concerns were identified by township staff or Kawartha Conservation. The region's planning department has requested that a holding provision be applied to the zoning to ensure the applicant demonstrates there is adequate private servicing available for any future uses and structures. The region also noted that an archaeological assessment would be required as part of a future site plan application. There were no objections or concerns received from any other external agency. As the mayor noted, notice of this public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and advertised in the local newspaper and posted on the township's website. A sign is also placed on the property to notify the public of the application. A future staff report will include an analysis of any comments received tonight, together with any subsequent written comments received, and make a recommendation on the proposed application. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions and listen to any comments.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Prentice? Seeing none, I will now, pardon? Oh, sorry, Councillor Brown?
Yes, I hope this is the appropriate place to ask these questions, and thank you for your presentation. Just on page 70 of
We will be
our-
dealing with the report right afterwards, but go ahead with
Okay.
your question in case it's pertinent right now.
I have 3 of them,
Okay.
if that's okay, Madam Mayor. On page 70, my question is, if we do this for Willow Tree, what doors does it open for the others to do the same, or other people to do the same? And are we going to see more ag businesses put in licensed restaurants? Do you foresee something like that? That's the first question. May I wait for an answer on that?
I might suggest that the applicant's planning consultant might be able to address the more detailed uses that are being proposed.
Okay.
I can further come back to the question when we're done with that
Okay.
presentation if you'd like.
That's
Okay, so you could
absolutely
ask
fine by me.
Valerie Cramner when she comes up, and then, or probably during the report. But go ahead, your second question?
My second question is, on page 71, can you explain more about the archaeological assessment and what that entails?
Sure. That I can address. So this is a common request that comes as part of development applications in areas where there's potential for archaeological resources to be found in the ground. And it's a study for them to identify whether there is potential or not. And if there is, they have to do further study. And that's part of the process as part of many of our development applications. They're typically done when you're proposing structures and disturbing the ground. So that's why it would be deferred to the next site plan application.
Okay. And one more, staff to take public input from the statutory meeting and make recommendations. I just want to know when we'll see the recommendations.
So we're still working on some additional comments with the region, but we'd hope to have a recommendation report back in front of council within the next few months. It also depends on the comments we receive tonight.
Great, that's great.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just further to Councillor Brown's comments. Would there be anywhere in this township, given the treaty lands and everything, that an archaeological assessment would not be required?
The region generally asks for it on most applications.
Thank you, I thought so.
Any other questions? Okay. I will now ask Valerie Cramner and Associates to present information regarding this application on behalf of the applicant. Ms. Cramner, please proceed with your presentation. Welcome.
Good evening. Happy New Year to everybody. Madam Mayor,
Is your microphone on?
she left it
Yeah, it's
on, I
better.
just wasn't looking into it. Okay, so, I'll try not to repeat anything that Ms. Prentice has already said, so I'll skip this first slide. And the next slide just talks about the existing operation, and there's 310 acres that are owned, and they rent in addition another 300 acres. And it's a mixed crop operation, and it's operating. The farm market operates year-round, and they sell not only the produce from their farm, but also produce from Ontario and a lot of the local farmers. The existing farm markets building is 680 square meters, and I think a lot of you are familiar with what's there. There's a commercial kitchen, a cafe, butcher shop, and there's fruits, vegetables, baked goods, and some crafts for sale. There's a small play area as well with an exhibit of farm animals and parking for 90 vehicles. The intention is that in the future, it's not part of this application at this point, but to expand the farm market area to the north to include a cold storage area of approximately 280 square meters. And also, in the future, to build an agricultural and animal education facility, which would be approximately 139 square meters. It's difficult to know exactly the size of these buildings, but that's what we're looking at already. There's Willow Tree hosts many tours, holds special events and educational seminars as well to raise the awareness of the locally grown food and the care required for farm animals. And there are approximately 20 full-time employees and another 80 seasonal employees. It is a major agritourism attraction for the township and for Durham region. And there are a number of special popular events that people come to the farm for. And we actually, in order to address some issues that were raised by the township, we had the building capacity of the building confirmed to be 133 people, so that there's sufficient space for people safely in the existing farm market building when they have the special events. As Robin said, this application, I think she said it is conforms and consistent with all of the policy documents at the provincial and the regional and the township levels. The one that is critical for us to try and the main reason why we made this application is to identify how what all the activities that are happening on the farm conform with the guidelines on permitted uses in the Ontario's prime agricultural areas. This document was brought forward after the region's official plan was reviewed and after the township's official plan was reviewed. So it's not really reflected in either of those documents. So we worked very hard with the municipality to try and ensure that what we were doing in the zoning bylaw would in fact recognize this important document, and especially how it deals with the on-farm diversified uses. And there's a number of criteria in that document that need to be addressed, and they are whether it's located on the on-farm diversified uses are located on a farm, whether they're secondary to the principal agricultural use of the property. It's to be limited in area, and the maximum limit on a large farm, and in this case, a willow tree farm is considered to be a large farm. So it's only allowed to be 1 hectare in size around the farm market area. And there are a number of uses that are permitted as well, and those include home occupations, home industries, the agritourism uses, and uses that produce value-added agricultural products. And it's also, the farmer's market should not, it has to be compatible with the adjacent residents and shouldn't hinder the surrounding agricultural operations. And we determined in the letter that we submitted with the application was in fact all the things that happen on the willow tree in fact are consistent with the requirements of the agricultural guidelines from the province. What I have done on this chart is just to identify what is the use, how much of the use on the property is in fact diversified uses, because most of the uses that are the things that are sold in the farmer's market are not considered to be the diversified uses. It's some of the retail things that go on in the store, the crafts that are sold. So there's a formula that is in the guidelines that we used. And so in order to determine the amount of diversified uses in the original farmer's market, we took 50% of the square footage of that building. Then we had to take, for the addition, we took 25% of the square footage of the additional square footage to come up with 105 square meters of diversified uses in the building that we had to take into account now. And they also had to apply part of the formula to the parking lot as well, the number of parking spaces, and to determine the diversified uses, the people who might be coming for the diversified uses as opposed to the agricultural uses. So, and same with the playground, and same with the septic area. So we came up with a figure of 2,521 square meters of diversified uses. That includes the existing building and the two proposed that includes just the existing building we have today. So we did the same calculations for the cold storage addition, which would increase the diversified uses for another 2,572 square meters. And then with the educational facility added as well, there would be 2,947 square meters. But we're still well with these, all of the expansions that they're considering and the existing uses. The portion of the farm used for diversified uses is still well below the maximum limit of 1 hectare set in the provincial guidelines. The official plan also identifies a number of criteria, and the use of the farm market is to be clearly associated with and located on a commercial farm. And the retail component has a gross floor area of no more than 500 square meters. The majority of the products for sale, in terms of monetary value, are to be produced or manufactured on the farm property. The proposed use shall not have a negative impact on the enjoyment and privacy of the neighboring properties. And there's an adequate on-site facilities are to be provided for the use, in addition to the parking required for the principal use on the property. And such parking is provided in locations that are compatible with surrounding uses. They also, there's to be no traffic hazard created by the use. The use is to be serviced with appropriate water and wastewater systems. The use is to enhance the rural and open space character of the township through its preservation of the barns and or the establishment of a built form that is compatible with the rural surroundings. And the building housing the proposed use is to be located within the existing farm building cluster where possible, and shall utilize a common driveway with the principal use of the property. And the signage is to be designed and located in accordance with the township sign bylaw. So we, after considerable discussion with the township and the region, it was decided that we come forward with a site-specific amendment to permit the on-farm diversified uses. And in order to do that, it's necessary to amend the table 761 AG and the ORM AG exceptions. And these, the table and the exception is detailed in the staff report that's before you today. There are a number of regulations that are suggested, and that's the maximum area for on-farm diversified uses is 1 hectare, and we're suggesting that that be included in the zoning bylaw. The floor area for each of the secondary use structures is to be limited to 2,000 square meters. The maximum retail space on the on-farm market is 500 square meters. And then there was one that we were talking about a few back and forth, and that's whether we would identify that the maximum number of seats in the cafe would be 28. At the present time, that's not included in the zoning bylaw, and we're quite pleased about that. The region, that's part of the further discussions that Ms. Prentice is going to have with the region. Our preference is that there not be a number, that if it's necessary to say something about the number of seats in the restaurant, that it be left to the discretion or to make sure that it's in accordance with the approval of the health department. At the present time, that's sufficient, and the health department has no problem with what we're proposing. But in the future, there may be a need to expand the septic system that's on the farm. And if that were the case, then it may be worthwhile to consider additional seats. And we don't want to have to go through another zoning amendment to change that number. But as long as it still has to be approved by the health department, whichever way. So, but we would prefer not to have a specific number. There is one thing that we've that the region has required that it be a holding zone for the additional uses, not for the, just not to recognize the present uses. But if we came forward, they are requiring an H for site plan approval. However, your official plan does say that you require a site plan for any further development, and we're in accordance with that. So we feel that the township has already covered enough, and we're hoping that Ms. Prentice will be successful in her discussions with the region, so we won't have the H that is requested by the region. And we look forward to seeing a recommendation and report in the future, and Jordan is here to answer any questions you may have that I can't.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cramner. Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Cramner, for your presentation. I just have a few questions, and first I'd like to say that I very much appreciate having a place for children to come and see where our food comes from. So, Mr. Mackay, I really do appreciate having that here in our township. The first question is regarding the 28 seats. Is that specifically done on factoring with the septic? Is that why we came up with 28?
Yeah, it has to do with the current flow left on our system at the store. So that's the maximum we can have given the flow that's left on the system.
Okay, and does that account for outdoor seating, or is that just we only worry about the 28 seats indoor?
28 seats has to do more with the liquor license that we'd be applying for in the future.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then about 3 slides back, when the township official plan requirements, when it's right there, yes, the third bullet down, majority of products offered for sale. Who determines what the majority of the products are? Is there a specific number that we have to adhere to?
There is no specific number. This is actually, this is part of the policy that's in the township's official plan that may require some revision to bring it into conformity with the provincial guidelines. The provincial guidelines are a little bit more flexible than this, but basically it's, I guess it's almost a matter of trust, if you want to say that. We know that the majority of the products that are sold there in Willow Tree are in fact, the agricultural products are in fact from the farm or from the local farmers in the area. That is an additional bit that's in the guidelines that's not in your official plan.
And it's talking on monetary value as well. So we grow 200 acres of fruits and vegetables. We grow a lot of different crops. But if you look at our balance sheet, we grow strawberries. So what we sell in the summer, we grow strawberries from the beginning of June till this year Thanksgiving. And that is the main crop we grow, and then a lot of corn. So when you go into the store, you see a lot of products. But if you look at our financials, a great deal of that is coming from a few key products and then a lot of different produce we grow as well.
Perfect, thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I'm sure it took an awful long time, and it's been an ongoing process, and I admire your work, both of you, all three of you actually, because Robin was part of this too, or so she seems to be. Agritourism, which could include, this is my notes, could include restaurant LCBO, which I presume is cider, an alcoholic cider of some kind, bakery, school tours, and a winery. Can you, that's at least what I have written down here from what I've gone through. Can you extrapolate a little bit, explain a little bit more on the plans for a winery and your cider?
Actually, I don't think there is plans for a winery. However, Jordan can talk a bit about the cider part. They already make non-alcoholic cider.
Yes.
So it's the alcoholic part that you're interested in?
Yes.
Yeah, and we just wanted to leave things open to doing, this much work to get it through. We've got some big plans coming up this year that I'm not ready to kind of make public yet, but 2 years ago, what's coming up in the next couple of years, we had no idea. We don't know what's happening 3 to 4 years from now. We're in a different industry than you know, agritourism, bringing people to the farm for experiences, it's changing so quickly and it's changing all over the world. So to say where our industry's going in the next couple of years is really hard to do. More and more people are coming out to the country. They're spending the day. When they come out and spend the day, they want something to eat. They want something for the kids to do. And it's just becoming, instead of just going to your local farm to buy a dozen corn, families are coming out for experiences, and they're coming from a lot further. You know, you wouldn't get families 15, 20 years ago coming from Toronto, coming from Bowmanville just to our farm to buy strawberries and corn, but they're coming because it's more than that. And as our industry changes, you know, the big trends that are coming up is food and beverage, and we want to be able to take advantage of those trends as they come.
So subsequent, if I may, so the plan is, your plan then is to have a licensed, I don't know if you call it a cidery or whatever, but that's part of the licensed restaurant? Have I got that factored
Well,
in properly?
they'd be, depending on how it goes, we'd like to license the cafe as any cafe you'd go to in town where you can have a drink with your meal or a drink while you listen to some music. But alongside that, we would like to have a cidery as well, where we're fermenting our own juice and selling it on site. So that would have two parts.
Okay, and hopefully my final, did you want to chip in?
I just wanted to add that the cidery is dealt with under the brewery/winery definition in our zoning bylaw. So while it reads brewery winery, it does cover cideries as well, and that's why it's listed that way. So I
Okay.
just wanted to clarify that.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, one more, hopefully, and that's it. I did ask at the beginning of this, where you think we're gonna go, or where does, you were talking about the future, where is the future going to lead?
Sure.
In this particular instance, are we opening the door to others to do the same thing by doing this?
Sure. So to answer that question, now that they've explained a bit more of their situation, I wanted to have that background for your knowledge, because they do the cideries, and it is related to the agricultural use on the property.
Right.
So other agricultural operations do have an opportunity to apply for, at this point in time, a site-specific amendment to allow for such uses, but they would have to demonstrate that it is tied to the agricultural use on the property, as Willow Tree Farms has done with respect to the growing of the crops and then taking that into a cidery or similar type of operation. So it is tied, and that's how it comes to be in the zoning.
Great, thank you.
Further questions? I have one. You say at this point you have 20 employees and 80 seasonal approximately. With the extensions and you know, the future plans, are you anticipating more employees?
Definitely with tours and education. You know, if we develop a bit of it's a combination for smaller events, for education, to help our tour programs, to help our Easter activities and our maple activities when the fall and spring weather doesn't cooperate. The more people that come to our farm, the more people we need to take care of them. This will also allow us to take more of the locally produced food, process it, and store it with more storage. So it's two ways. The storage will allow us to bring in more product throughout the season, and then the education facility will allow us to bring more people to the farm, which will create more jobs.
Thank you. That's good news. No further questions of either our planner or Ms. Cramner, or, okay. So are there any, I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that we had the privilege of coming to the farm last year when we had the tour there, and that you did the tour through the different parts of the farm and explained. I think it was Gates Open or Farm Fresh. It was one of those events, and you held in a tent there, and it was really, really. I mean, I live on a farm, and my husband's family have been farming in this community for a while, but it was so educational. It was so interesting to hear. And I want to echo Councillor Guido's comments that I think it's really exciting. Your family have won, you know, Canada's latest Outstanding Young Farmers Award. It's a 3-generation farm. You've got beehives, you sell naturally grown beef, you press your apple cider. I mean, I really think in an age where we're seeing farmland disappear and where we need to protect and preserve our food, I think what you're doing, the innovation that you're bringing forward, is really critical. I know it's not straightforward with all of the different zoning components, so I'm sure that this has been a difficult and agonizing process, and I just want to affirm the work that you're doing. I respect that people are here to hear this public meeting tonight. we do care about our community, all of us, and we care what happens. We also want to be able to eat, and we want our farms to thrive. So I would just like to express my appreciation for the hard work that you've been doing, and I appreciate that you have demonstrated in your report all of the different alignments that are there with the OP, the official plans, with the Greenbelt, with OMAFRA's regulation for on-farm diversified use. You've really demonstrated all of that, so I just want to thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Okay, counselors, we've got new monitors here, and there will be an opportunity in a different stand so that you can lower them, but right now all I can see is your chin up. So if I miss your hand, it's because I can't see it. So if you put your hand up high, that, hopefully they'll be in place next meeting. So sorry about that. Any other questions? Okay, so are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? Any members of the public wish to speak to this application? Third and last time, if there are any members of the public who wish to speak, please proceed to the microphone and state your name and municipal address. Seeing none, thank you for attending and providing your input into this statutory public information meeting. And this concludes this portion of the meeting, and I want to say thank you. I know it's been a long and arduous journey for this, and I really want to thank you and our staff for cooperating and seeing it through, both of you.
One thing, I just want to say that we did hold, the township did hold a public information session here last month, and there were a number of the neighbors did come to that meeting, and gave their comments to us, so we tried to address them as we went through the final stage.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. With council's consent, we'll bring the report forward. It's on page 65, page 65 of your agenda tonight. And we have Councillor Guido moving it. The recommendation is that the information report be received and that recommendation on this application come back at the earliest opportunity. Seconded by Councillor Kiesebrink. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Did you want to? Oh, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry. Way up high. Did you want to say something, Councillor? Okay. It's done. It's done. Okay. Maybe if I had a booster seat, I could see it. Did you? Yes. Second public meeting. Another public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by D and V Graham for the property located at 3505 Church Street. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decision will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog. Everyone present has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from side conversations. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all those present who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing so that staff can ensure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting or provide written comments before council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT for short, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision of these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice for this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. I will now ask Robin Prentice to provide information regarding the application and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Prentice, please proceed with your presentation.
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this public meeting is, again, to present the proposed application and obtain comments from both council and the public. An application for a zoning bylaw amendment was received from the landowners, D&V Graham, for the property located at 3505 Church Street in Blackstock. The application was deemed complete on September 30th, 2019. The purpose of the proposed application is to permit the owners to convert the existing church into a residential dwelling. The subject property is located within the hamlet of Blackstock, within the Greenbelt Protected Countryside, and is designated hamlet in the township's official plan. The property is currently zoned Hamlet Residential 2 and Community Facility. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is intended to apply a site-specific exception to the community facility portion of the property to permit a single detached dwelling and associated accessory uses within the existing church, in addition to the other uses, that are currently permitted in the community facility zone, as outlined on the slide. The property is designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, and the application was circulated to the Township's Heritage Committee. Given that the applicants are not proposing any alterations to the exterior of the building, the Heritage Committee did not have any comments. No objections or concerns have been identified by Township staff or any external agency. As the mayor noted, notice of this public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with the notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the property, and advertised in the local newspaper and posted on the township's website. A sign was also placed on the property to notify the public of the application. A future staff report will include an analysis of any comments received tonight or any subsequent written comments and make a recommendation on the application. That concludes my presentation. The property owners are here tonight in order to answer any questions, and I'd also be happy to answer any questions and take in any comments.
Thank you, Ms. Prentice. Are there any questions for Ms. Prentice? Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. When it reads that it's that you're going to put they're going to put a single family dwelling there, but also they're going to we're going to allow other activities there.
So the reason,
am I reading that correctly?
yeah, the reason we're protecting for the existing permitted uses is to, if they want to convert the church, if they want to convert the structure back to a church in the future, it's not to remove the permission for a church to do so, but it's to allow them to live in it right now. Right now, you're allowed to have a dwelling as part of a church, but their desire is to not have the church right now and just the dwelling, and that wasn't currently permitted under the zoning.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Prentice, again. Just on page, I guess it's 82, which is your conclusion regarding the church. You just say staff are to study this and get back to us. Just when did you plan on doing that?
It depended on if any comments are received tonight. Otherwise, we can bring a report back within the next few months.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? Please proceed to the microphone and state your name and municipal address.
No, I'm not pulling one. I would like to unpull one. I pulled 9.1.6, but I no longer have that question.
Any others to be pulled? Seeing none. May I have a motion to accept the rest of the reports and under the consent agenda? Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So 9.1.1 was myself. And I just wanted to know, Director Coleman, about the grant application for investing in Canada. I see by the minutes that we were submitting one. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the application was submitted a couple days before the deadline. I did learn one thing during the application process. I originally understood that the cap was at 2.3 million that we could get. I've learned since that the total project value cap was 2.3 million, and we're eligible for 73.33% of that in funding. So if we're successful, we'll receive about 1.7 million.
Thank you, and I know that was a very arduous application to put in, and I thank you and your staff and any other staff member that that put that together. Thank you very much. It's a very important, very important thing for our township to have this. So that's for the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project, for those who are listening. Okay, thank you, and that's all I had on that. Are there any other questions? I have a mover, please, to move the council minutes. Councillor McDougall, Councillor Brown, all those in favor? And that's carried. 9.1.3 on page 16, the Environmental Advisory Committee. And that was pulled by Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you. Just finding my spot here.
Page 16.
Thank you. It was, sorry.
What's you?
It's a new year, Madam Mayor. Just trying to get used to our devices again. On, no,
It's on your screen, if that helps.
yeah. I just wanted to bring up, in the environmental committee meeting minutes, we brought up, we talked about the earthwork site, and it was talked about, sorry, page 19.
Thank you.
We talked about the earthwork site, and there was talk about a remediation plan in place with the MOE. That wasn't quite exactly what was talked about. It was talked about that the earthworks was working with the MOE CC or CP on remediation plans for that site, and that's within the MOE's guidelines and not within the township's guidelines. I just wanted to make sure that was minuted correctly.
Okay, well, can you bring that up at the next environmental meeting so that the minutes can be reflected, those changes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mover, Councillor McDougall, yeah, and Councillor Guido. All those in favor? That's great, thank you very much. 9.1.4, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that's Councillor Guido. That's on page 20.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 items on this one. One is just Scugog just needs to be spelt differently, S-C-U-G-O-G at the top. Not on there, but if you scroll down to the next page at the top, at the page header, that's just a minor right there.
You are observant.
Yeah, sorry, I wish I wasn't as observant, but anyways. on page 23 of the minutes, when it's discussing the old rail lane, and that it's a main artery to Port Perry, and it's currently not maintained in the winter time, may I ask what would be involved if we did maintain this walkway, seeing as though it's been redone, and is a walking trail that we do use? Perhaps this is for Director Coleman, but do we know approximately expense-wise or resource time-wise what it would cost to include clearing that main walkway?
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I don't know that cost offhand, but I can follow up with our manager of Public Works and get back to you on that.
Thank you, that would be great. Seeing as though it is now a lovely path, I just was wondering, seeing as though that we have a seniors facility, a building there. That's my only question, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On, sorry, thank you. On page 24, 3/4 of the way down the page, under Part 2, 2020 Committee Work Plan, there was a discussion about, Councillor McDougall suggested that this committee consider aligning with the Active Transportation Committee, and that should actually be a clarification. There was talk previously about active transport being part of the Environmental Committee, and the discussion was that active transportation could be a shared goal between the Accessibility Committee and the Environmental Committee, because they both have similar kind of goals in terms of that. So it wasn't within reference to a new committee that we don't have, just that they might seek aligning with the Environmental Committee on those goals.
That could be addressed maybe when the minutes are brought up at the next
Yes.
meeting, whoever's there. So you were the alternate, Councillor McDougall, so if you were there, or
I will do that.
councillor that's there. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any other questions or comments? May I have a mover, please, on these minutes? Receive. Councillor Watton, Councillor McDougall. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next one is 9.1.5, the Scugog Heritage Advisory Committee on page 26. And that is pulled by, is that you, Councillor Guido? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is located on page 30 of our agenda package in regards to a discussion with the committee that for forestry and heritage, and whether or not there was trees or forests included in designation for our heritage. Do we currently designate trees, Director Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Heritage value statements that form part of a designation for a property can include significant or historical landscaping features within that document. To date, I haven't seen that in this municipality.
Okay, so it wouldn't be looking at a specific tree, it would be more of a forest of significant value then?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, generally that's what happens.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions on these minutes? Motion to receive the minutes, Councillor Watton, Councillor Ross, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Next one is 9.2.1, I believe. Oh, sorry, we've done that one. 9.2.4, the Snowmobile Club. And Councillor McDougall, you pulled that? And that is on page 103.
I can, as I'm paging down to it, it's within reference to the schedules attached to the Snowmobile Club bylaw, proposed bylaw.
Yes.
I just wanted to make note, the Snowmobile Club being members of my ward, they're amazing partners, I know they are. I just wanted to make note that part of the Snowmobile Club route as marked on the schedules is part of the Scugog Waterfront Trail, and I know that's being upgraded as part of the, I believe, Canterbury Commons lands. And I want to make sure that moving ahead in the future that that shared use trail can be recognized and used by both users perhaps year round. So there might be pedestrians that may be on that section of trail as well as snowmobiles in the winter. So I just want to make sure that's kind of kept in, in the eye as this bylaw is moving ahead. But as I read the bylaw, I don't actually see anything within specific reference to those sections of trails. So I'm sure they'll be able to work with us.
Who is the author of this? Ms. Stevenson, do you have, there you are.
Page 110 is the
Through
page I
you,
was
Madam
looking at.
Mayor, to the counselor. Within the agreement with the Snowmobile Club, it does specify that it is not exclusive use.
Okay. They're great partners anyway, so I'm sure we'll have no issues at all. I just wanted to make note that that is part of the Scugog Waterfront Trail, and I know it's being upgraded, and certainly we're seeing more and more use in that area all the time. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, you had a question or comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just in regards to, on page 111, in regards to the Ball Diamond, North Ball Diamond being used as a parking area for snowmobiles, the map that's provided, is that going to be the ingress and egress from the north infield? Is that going to be a marked line, or is it going to be free for all for snowmobiles coming in?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the counselor. No, it is up to the Snowmobile Club. They will be marking the trail, and they will be opening and closing it as the conditions warrant. As it stands now, none of the trails have been opened yet within Scugog, so.
Okay, thank you. Further through you, Madam Mayor, given the map, I'm not sure if this is the exact detail that will be as per the Snowmobile Club, but it does cross a sidewalk on a number of occasions. What will the Snowmobile Club or the township do to ensure that those are shared areas between pedestrians and snowmobiles?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Snowmobile Club, as with all their other trails, will be marking and delineating with signage where the snowmobiles are permitted to go. So they will have signage with respect to where the snowmobiles are supposed to be and letting the public know as well.
Okay, thank you. And finally, as they are parking on the infield, understanding that it's dirt or gravel, any damages that are caused to the infield, if they haven't closed it in time, will that be the Snowmobile Club's responsibility?
Yes, it will be. And again, they will be determining use based on the conditions. If they determine that the conditions don't warrant the snowmobiles being there, they will close that down.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Ms. Stevenson, on page 104, I don't know that you have that, but 104 for our councillors anyway. You talk about slowing to 10 kilometers past the dog park, 10 kilometers an hour. I'd like to know who's going to police that, and how close exactly to the dog park are they going to be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Right now, it's self-policed, so the Snowmobile Club will have signage up, and we will be dealing with issues on a complaint basis. The trail as it is proposed right now along the east side of the park, there's approximately, I would say, about a 2-meter buffer in between where the proposed trail will run along the park, but along the south side of the park, it is directly adjacent. They will be widening what's currently there, and we will be delineating the entrance to the park, and the entrance to the trail will be delineated by a fence and signage as well.
So subsequent, if I may then just follow up on that. So if I've got a dog and the dog gets scared because the snowmobiles are coming by, even if it is at 10 kilometers an hour, then I have to come and complain to the township, right? Because that's my only avenue of recourse. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate at this point in time, yes.
Okay. And with the ball diamonds, if the waterfront action plan and afterwards, if it's decided that the ball diamonds go, then what happens to the parking for the Snowmobile Club?
Right now, we have identified 2 parking areas. They are currently parking and have been for quite some time in Bagwatton Park. We're formalizing that within the agreement, and we're offering the ball diamond as an opportunity to get them closer to town. If the diamond goes, then the parking will go as well. right now, we haven't determined that there's anything else suitable at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Do I have a mover, please? Let's see. That the report be received and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the maintenance and use agreement and bylaw with Port Perry Snowmobile Club. Councillor McDougall, Councillor Ross, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And next one is on page 113, 9.2.5. Councillor McDougall, you've pulled it, and it's a facility rental user liability insurance program. And manager Shauna Cornish is the author of this. Page 113. Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There you are, Sean. A question, are we settling on an amount of a premium of $5 million for our events if alcohol is involved? Is that what I'm taking from this report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes.
Okay, very good. A question I have is if somebody has an event such as sports rental and a wedding, or like hockey and a dance, and I look at the schedule, do they pay, how does that get paid for?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the council, it would be separate. My understanding, they would pay for the insurance for the hockey event based on the number of people, and then pay for their insurance for their facility rental based on the number of people and the type of function.
Okay, that's all. And then, oh, sorry, one further question was, with regards to, through you, Madam Mayor, with regards to the alcohol licensed caterer serving versus alcohol organizer serving, when it says caterer, is that a bartending service?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's the understanding. It would be the Lions Club or someone you pay to
Dispense.
serve the alcohol, where I remember the language to the alcoholic organized server. If that's just you having your smart serve and you as the renter having your smart serve and dispensing the alcohol.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So are we saying that only Armor Insurance brokers, insurance providers can provide insurance? Like historically, how has insurance been provided? Because I know we've always required insurance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. No, so to answer the question, Armor Insurance is not the only provider. It's we're going to offer it as an easy way off of the website, but right now the current practice is anybody requiring insurance, especially for an alcoholic event, they go and seek their own insurance out. We have in the past heard that they struggle with that. They find that a challenge. So this is just providing a service link through our website.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Manager Cornish, the premiums on page 116 that we see here, just clarification more than anything else. These premiums, they don't have anything to do with pickleball or North Durham hockey or anything like that, right?
So through you, Mayor, to the councillor, they do not. Pickleball is a township of Scugog recreation program. So like the daytime skating program, somebody coming out to go public skating does not require insurance. They fall under our township insurance. Same as well as pickleball or our Nerf Battle program. Any of those programs offered by the township, those participants are covered under our insurance. North Durham minor hockey, your example, like Central Wolves Ontario or Central Wolves and Mojax and the Men's and Ladies Hockey League, they already do provide us insurance for the season. This is more targeting the private renters. Say you came in, rented the ice for an hour. Right now, they're not required to provide insurance for that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Question for Director Cornish. Just for clarification, for the community halls such as Greenbank and Utica, if somebody was to rent this for, say, a birthday party, how does this affect that rental?
We're, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the report recommends that this would affect those halls that, I can say from what I know, they try to get insurance, but now that's why we're asking for it to be effective March 1st to allow us time to get together with the halls. They were aware 2 years ago that this was something we were going to propose. At each annual meeting, they asked for an update, so we'd be able to let them know that this is something the township is moving forward with.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Kiesebrink.
Not a question, just a comment. Since it's our first one back, I want to congratulate you on your manager position. We're glad to have all of your hard work, and we look forward to all the good things ahead. So
Thanks very much.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Further questions on this? The recommendation that the report be received and that the rental user liability insurance program be approved to commence on March 1st for all facility and activity rentals, and that Armor Insurance Brokers insurance providers be used to facilitate the purchase of insurance for the facility users. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor Guido, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next one is 9.2.6, and that's the recreation program, page 119. And again, Manager Shauna Cornish is the author on this. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to the account credits that are I've highlighted on page 121, 3.4, states that the client credits following a cancellation, $10 administrative fee will be put onto a credit for that person to use within 6 months. Can you just explain why the 6 months came up and what would happen if it's at the end of the season, or given that a lot of our programs are seasonal, somebody cancels on a sports camp and that's not offered again for over 12 months? If you could explain why the 6 months is in there.
Are you able to answer that, or would it be advisable for the Director of Finance, Ms. Valentin?
We can do a little helping together.
Ms. Valentin, Director Valentin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was my suggestion, actually, from a finance perspective, not to have credits carry forward too long, just from an accounting perspective. We'd like to be able to get those off the books if possible. It's hard to manage.
Okay, just to follow up to that, is it hard to manage because it's in a new fiscal year, or is it just the actual time span itself?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it could be, it is typically for the fiscal year, so we're trying to ensure that things are all done within the year. So the credit doesn't have to be utilized for the same program. It could be used for any other recreation program. So we're just trying to stipulate that they don't have to wait a full year to use their credit up. They could use it for another recreation program.
Okay. My concern with this is just understanding what it is like to have kids in summer programs or any programs anytime. If we were to cancel a fall program, 6 months would fall into the new fiscal year. That doesn't pose a problem, given the 6 months. I'm just trying to understand it. My concern is that, you know, if you're only using a township camp in the summer, and then you can't use it again. I understand it's $10, but $10 to a lot of families that are putting their kids into these programs is considerable. So, if it's a consideration, is there movement around that to extend it for a year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're trying to establish a policy here.
Yeah.
There was no, as far as I understand, there wasn't a real policy before on the time limit, but it became very hard to track from an accounting perspective of the payments and such. So a refund can be offered if the credit can't be utilized. There is an administration fee because there is work that's being done. And that's all we're trying to capture our fees in that regard.
Okay. Just through you, Madam Mayor. My question is not in regards to the administrative fee. I understand that need 100%. Just trying to give some more guidance as to, like, we want a proper policy that's not, has to go, you know, up the level, as it says in the next point, that has to be approved by director or CAO, that it can be looked at face value. So it's not the actual $10 administrative fee, it's the length of time. But if there's no movement from a financial, from a bookkeeping side of things, then that's understandable. I just want to make sure I understand that properly. That it's a bookkeeping.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Ross. This isn't maybe going to help the case very much. I just want to make sure that we're clear that if they requested a refund and it was a credit, the total amount would be put as a credit, like not a $10 administration fee. So yeah. So you register your son for a recreation program, and for some reason, 7 days before the program starts, he can't make it. And the recreation program fee is $50. You could ask for that $50 to be put on a credit, and you would get the whole $50 as a credit for 6 months.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
that's great.
Okay, good.
Councillor Betugal.
I'm just looking at page 122, 3.6, and it says all refunds shall be approved by the director,
Oh, yeah.
CAO, or their delegate.
That's the one that I had,
Actually,
wasn't it?
perhaps on reading this, would the delegate be the manager? Is that what the thought is? Okay, all right, very good.
Actually, I had something on that too.
Yes, I actually I thought about it after, and I thought maybe it's nice not to be named.
But, my
Because
point was on,
then you can always pass it up and say my director didn't approve your refund.
never.
Thank you.
My point was on 3.8. On 3.6 and on 3.9, you have the discretion of the director, CAO, or delegate. I believe that perhaps 3.8 is the same thing. It should be discretion of the director, CAO, or delegate.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that change can be
Okay.
made.
That's good, thank you. Anything else on this, Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Manager Cornish, on page 121, we're talking about these 3 points anyway, so 3.1 and 3.5. And forgive me if I'm just going to read this quickly. Registrants who decide they no longer wish to participate in a registered recreation program, day camp, or swimming lesson session must request a refund in writing using the appropriate form if the request is to withdraw on or after the course start date. But then 3.5 says requests submitted on or after the course start date will not receive a refund. I'm not sure I understand the difference.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We do get many requests that are on or after the course start date, even though on their receipt and in the leisure guide, it states that they won't get a refund. The past practice, and we decided to continue it, is to give them a chance to give us a reason. Sometimes there's some judgment calls that could be made. Medical refunds are listed here, but that's mostly what those are for. So it's to have them fill out the form, to look at them on a case-by-case option to this basis to see if there's merit in the request.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a question on any of the threes. Actually, that's a lie, because on section three of your report, communication considerations, it says that the refund policy will be printed on the township's leisure guide. Can we also make sure that it's printed on the registration form, or is it already on the registration form?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it's on the receipt they receive. It's printed on every receipt they receive, our refund policy. We do not take registration forms anymore. It's all online, or they phone in or come and it's done on the computer.
So on the online registration form?
We could put something, yes.
Right,
Yep.
just to cover
Absolutely.
another basis, perhaps we can do that.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? I still have a concern about the 6 months. You know, not to have a refund or to have an administration fee or to forfeit it can be a hardship to some families, especially if you've got maybe a couple of kids and they're $50 a kid and you've had to cancel, you're forfeiting $30. That can be a lot. I would ask, I mean, maybe this can go for now, but I would ask that we consider that. I know it's better for our staff, but I think that we have to consider our residents as well, and you know, what's best for them, and you know, so anyway, I would ask for consideration of that. As Councillor Ross pointed out, if you've got a child for a swimming program in August, and that's all you're gonna do is have a swimming program, and you wanna do it next year, transfer it to next year, and you can't, I have a bit of a problem with that. Okay, so if that could be considered sometime. All right, do I have a mover, please? Oh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
I wonder if we can just make an amendment to that one bullet, because I feel the same way. Like, I would be lucky to get to my kids to do a thing that they like to do, but they're not necessarily going to just do something else to use up the credit. They're going to want to do their thing, and if it only is once a year, I agree that I feel like we should keep it to a year, to give people a chance to reuse the refund or the credit towards the program that they originally were, because kids aren't going to bump around and do other things other than what they already currently like to do, I would think.
Do you want to make an amendment?
Yeah, I would, yes.
Okay, do you want to work on that wording and we'll come back to it? Okay, so we'll hold this for the time being. Councillor Watton?
Given all the conversation that's gone around on this, when do credits come into play and a refund can't be asked for?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Don't want to generalize it by often, but we get asked both. We are, I feel, generous. We're not lenient, but we're reasonable in our decision-making with this, and this is formalizing a policy that we've been working with without it being formalized. So anybody who is on or after the course start date, they don't generally get a refund. If they are before the 7 days, they get the full refund minus the $10. And then in between that, once we've kind of set up our staffing and have things ready for the recreation program and somebody has withdrawn, that's when we would apply a credit to their account.
Okay, so to be clear, the credits only come into play if someone cancels within 7 days of the program start date.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Keysbrink, so I gather it is 3.4 that you would like to amend?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just to amend to 12 months, I completely understand where our Director of Finance is coming from as well. There's nothing worse than having straggling numbers and stringing things along. So I get that, but I'm wondering if we can just keep it from 6 months to 12 months, because that will give people adequate time to use it within the same program that they had gotten the refund from, or the credit from.
Comments on that? I know that's not your wish, Director Valentin. Manager Cornish, do you have any comment on that?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McDougall?
Sorry, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I wanted to make a suggestion, perhaps that maybe it not be 12 months, just because if your one thing you do is March break camp and you make it 12 months, it will have expired before the next March break camp starts. Or if it's swimming lessons and you cancel the July at the beginning of July, your credit will expire at the end of the first week of the next July.
But you register beforehand, correct?
Okay,
Typically.
that's fine. As
If
long
you
as
try and
it's-
register the week of it, you won't get in.
No, very good, that's fine. All right.
Okay, have you got some wording? Okay, why don't we take a break?
Madam Mayor, I think that if council wanted to just give this direction, we can make this change.
Okay, okay. Nope.
No, you want a resolution,
Oh,
Mr.
we've got a
Clerk?
bylaw. Yeah, we got a bylaw tonight.
Okay.
Okay,
Just-
perhaps we could have a 10-minute break?
Yes.
Can you just change the 6 to the 12?
I don't know
12
if
to the
that's her
6th?
intention.
I think it is.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my intention, Madam Mayor.
I would suggest we have a 10-minute break, and then Counselor Kieserbrink can talk with staff and come up with an amendment that would work. Okay? Is that a good thing? Okay, we'll break for till 10 after. Okay, everybody's back, so we can resume our meeting. And we're on report number, what the heck is it? 119, or page 119, and it's the recreation report. And Councillor Kiesebrink had an amendment. Would you like to state your amendment, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to amend that report, COMS 2020-002 Recreation Program Day Camp and Swimming Lesson Refund Policy be received, and that section 3.4 of the policy be amended and changed from 6 months to 12 months, and that the necessary bylaw as amended be passed to adopt the policy.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Ross? Questions or comments on the amendment? To the amendment, all those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any further questions on the report? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the amended report or amended recommendation? Councillor Watton? Councillor Ross? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We will have to bring forward bylaw number 9.4.2 on page 201 when we get there, because it was originally going to go through without being pulled, and because it's changed, it has to be pulled now. So moving on to 9.2.7 and page 125, and it's the Downtown BIA Memorandum of Understanding, and Councillor Guido has pulled that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just give Director Coleman a moment to sit down, but while she is sitting, I would like to just thank you very much for the notating the changes in a highlighted format, because it really does make it easier to see what is different. My question starts on page 138. The first question is regarding street sweeping. Who ensures, who owns ensuring there's no vehicles parked on the street at night? Is that the BI when the street cleaning is to occur? Is that the BIA's employee will do their typical signage, or is there a different way to notify?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I believe it's our public works staff that put up the signage. We do send out a notice beforehand to let BIA members know that it's going to happen, so that they can tell their staff and people not to park there, but I believe the public works put up the signs the night before.
Okay, thank you. And then regarding debris, I think there was a question about sidewalks and the maintenance of sidewalks. Typically in the past, I believe the Township of Scugog was responsible for weeding or removing the weeds on the sidewalks, but I believe now it's the property owner's responsibility. Has the BIA indicated that there will be some type of communication to their membership regarding these changes to avoid questions coming into staff as to when it's going to occur?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it was brought up at the BIA meeting on January 14th, and there was a discussion there about this proposed MOU. I don't know that that's much of a change from what it was before. I think this is just putting in paper what the current practice was. So the township didn't sweep the sidewalks on a regular basis, and business owners have done their own cleanup in the past. But we can increase the communication, that's possible.
Okay, no, it wasn't necessarily your communication. I was just hoping that the BIA, if there are significant changes to what the township used to do versus no longer doing, that communication is done to the membership. It's one thing to discuss it at the board meeting. Typically, you have your board and maybe one or two people in attendance, but it's the property owners that would then get questions from their tenants to say, why are the weeds not fixed on the property or whatever. So just to make sure that if you're speaking, or perhaps Councillor Brown when he's going back to the BIA, that any of these changes are communicated to the membership. And I think I had one other question. Yes, on page 9.5 regarding the Christmas lights and decorations, It says the BIA will be responsible for lighting within Palmer Park and will be reimbursed by the township for the cost of these lights up to $7,500 each. Do we not want to word it that at council's discretion or budget discretion? Because to me, this would indicate that we're always going to be committing $7,500 towards lights, and maybe next term of council or next year in our budget process, we may decide that we are not going to do that. This then binds us that up to $7,500 we will be committing to the lighting project. Not to say I don't like Christmas lights. Maybe something to consider.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I can propose that change to the BIA.
Thank you. Just so that we're not bound to a dollar value and the commitment every year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good, is that on? Good point, Councillor Guido. I mean, there comes a point where, you know, what are you gonna do with that much money and that many lights? So, it's a good point. Anything else, Councillor Guido? No? Okay, any other? Councillor Watton, did I see your hand, Councillor? Okay, Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to, I was pretty sure I had read about the weed removal, and maybe I'm misreading it, but on page 144 under section 6.1, I believe it addresses that it will be coordinated by the township upon the request of the BIA. I'm not, or did I miss something in the changes after? I'm just asking, Director Coleman.
Director Coleman? It was Councillor Watton had. Councillor Watton, do you want to restate your comment, question?
On page 144, under section 6, sidewalk and street maintenance, 6.1, it says sidewalk weed removal shall be undertaken a minimum of 2 times per year and will be coordinated by the township upon the request of the BIA. So I'm just following up on Councillor Guido's question as to who is doing that, and just making sure is 6.1 the correct way it's to be written.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that's correct for the weeds in the sidewalk. 6.4 talks about sidewalk sweeping, so that's what I was kind of referring to in my response. That we'll do the initial cleanup of sand on the sidewalk in the spring, but then subsequent sweeping of the sidewalk is the business owner's responsibility.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Director Coleman. A question I have is with regards to 6.5, it talks about a minimum width for snow plowing. I'm just curious, and speaking to the BIA members, I think is there a minimum width that needs to be maintained for the sidewalks in the summertime? Because I know with a double stroller, sometimes it can be a challenge between the planters and the signboards and everything else that exists. And forgive me, but I think one of the BIA members thought that existed somewhere in a bylaw, but I'm not sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I don't believe it's written anywhere what the minimum clearance is in the summer. I don't think we've had any policy in the past about minimum widths. This is an ongoing issue for us, that they want to put planters out, which we encourage because they make the sidewalk look a lot nicer. But then we also have our sidewalk equipment will damage them, and then they expect us to pay for the cost. So we just wanted to make it clear that, you know, we encourage making your business frontage look nice, but we also have to be able to have a certain clearance to get our equipment by.
Thank you. And one further question, if I might. Under section 11 on here, it's I'm looking at page 140. I think there's 2 copies of this, one as a draft and one marked up. It talks about bike racks, and it talks about bike racks will be considered as part of an annual budget. And it says as long as the BIA is prepared to fund 50% of the purchase price. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So most of the street furniture within the BIA area, if the BIA requests furniture, then it's a shared cost of 50-50. In this case, if something came out of the active transportation plan, we're recommending bike racks in certain locations, the township would probably pay the cost of those because it's a township initiative. But if the BAA is requesting street furniture, they usually share the cost.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't willing to pay for the bike racks if they were in front of, say, the marina, but if they're in the BIA area, we want 50% of the capital cost up front. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Kesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, there's the addition of the text that addresses the township numbering and keeping inventory of the benches. The benches are the property of the BIA, so I'm just wondering, what was the reason that that request was brought forward?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I think it's because they're paying the cost of the benches, and they just want to make sure that, you know, that the benches that they paid for and that are their property are used in the BIA area. It's just a method to keep track of it.
Anything further? Okay, the recommendation is to receive the report and that the MOU between the Township of Scugog and Downtown Port Perry BIA, as per attachment 3, be approved. Councillor Brown, Councillor Kesebrink, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. 9.2.8, well, this is the biggie. The updated traffic bylaw on page 148, and it's been pulled by Councillor McDougall and Councillor Guido and myself. Councillor McDougall. Just while you're looking it up, this is basically a housekeeping, just making sure that everything that has been approved in the past is included in a bylaw. So this is what they'll be working on for now, and then if there are changes in the future, that will be updated at a future housekeeping. Have I got that correct, Councillor or Director Coleman? Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
Pardon? Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just finding my spot here. The first item I'd like to speak to is, actually, it's an amendment that I think you have in front of you. It's just to bring the bylaw into accordance with the signage that exists on the road that's line 4 between Marsh Hill and Ashburn Road. And it's on Schedule O. And it's about 3/4 of the way down the page. It's on page 186.
Yes, I do have an addition to the motion that includes that, I believe.
Yes, and so the amendment speaks to line 4, Ashburn Road to west of limit of Marsh Hill Road. Currently, that section of road is signed as 50 kilometers an hour. So I'd just like to make sure that the bylaw as it's passed is reflective of the signage that exists at that location.
I'll read what the motion is that the updated traffic bylaw be received and that the bylaw appended as attachment 1 to report COMS 2020-04 be adopted, and that the schedules of the proposed bylaw be amended by deleting the road segment Scugog Line 4, Ashburn Road to west limit of Marsh Hill Road from Schedule O and adding the road segment to Schedule N to match the existing signage. Does that solve your problem?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does this deserve any further explanation for anybody? It was an oversight, I believe, on the, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, Councillor Guido, you have a question?
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, and I apologize, I thought Councillor McDougall was gonna have more questions, so I'm not at the right page. Sorry. Page 170 of our report, and I already spoke with Director Coleman, but I just didn't know if it needed to be communicated in council. It says on Old Simcoe Road, between Highway 7A and Queen Street, no parking. However, it's not posted that there's no parking, and I know it used to be no parking before we urbanized that road with the curb, beautiful curbs. Now that we have the curbs, I don't know if that then allows for parking on that section of road, but currently it is not signed as no parking. So.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillor, I imagine if we look at signage throughout the township, we'll find many instances where it doesn't match the bylaw, or at least a few. I'm happy to look at those in any future updates. If you want to remove that today, you can make a motion to do that. Otherwise, if you see any discrepancy between signage and the bylaw, I can just bring those forward on the next housekeeping cleanup of the bylaw.
I'm not sure if I necessarily want it removed. It's conflicting with that. I would love to have a bunch of cars parked on both sides of the road so that the trucks don't drive down there when they're not supposed to be driving down there. But I'm not sure what the best course of action to do. Is it our practice that if it is a curved road that you're allowed to park on it?
Director Coleman, what do you suggest is the best solution for this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillor, we don't have a policy if there's a curb or not a curb, there's parking or not parking. It depends on the type of the road and other factors. I think probably the best way to deal with this is to have a discussion afterwards and maybe just talk to what the neighbors and then come up with the best plan. Should it be parking or no parking, or should it be no parking one side of the road?
I am perfectly comfortable with that, Director Coleman. Thank you. And my next question, I wasn't sure whether it should have been discussed when we were referring to the BIA, but this is probably the best area to discuss it. Our downtown core between Water and Simcoe Street, I don't believe, and again, I meant to drive down, I don't believe there's any posted signs for the speed limit in there. Not that with car traffic, we do have an issue with speed, hopefully down there, but do main downtowns typically have a posted sign for their speed limit, or is it understood that if it's not posted, it's 40, or is there something?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, if it's not posted, then it's a default speed limit for the township, so that would be 50 kilometers an hour. But it is bylawed at 40 kilometers an hour, so it should have signage that says 40 kilometers an hour.
Okay, so then is this direction that you need via motion, or this is just direction?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't need direction for that. That's just some of the cleanup we need to do in the township, put up appropriate signs.
Wonderful, thank you. Wonder who the lucky store owner will be to have that in front of them.
Any further questions? Councillor Brown? Councillor Ross, did you have your hand? No. Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this may be an elementary question, but I'm good at asking elementary questions. On page 149, the chart of signs which were omitted, I just want to ask Director Coleman if all those signs are they all up anyway, like Ashburn Road? Or do we have to put them up, or where are we at with all of that?
Thanks for asking my question.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for letting me.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So you did send this question, or someone sent this question ahead of time. I wasn't able to get out today to check all the signage, but if this bylaw is passed tonight, then we will go out and we will do an inspection and make sure the signage is appropriate for each of those locations. Ashburn Road, I know it does have the 50-kilometer signs. The other ones, I'm not aware if they're all in place, but we'll check, and if they're not, we'll put them up.
Any others? Councillor McDougall?
Has everybody had a turn to speak before I ask my second round of questions? My question goes to, when I look at to Director Coleman, when I look at the schedules M, N, et cetera, through to O, it lists exceptions to the speeds. If they're not listed in those charts, what is the speed on the rural roads?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the default speed limits in Scugog are 50 kilometers per hour in built-up areas and 80 kilometers per hour in non-built-up areas, rural areas.
So through you, Madam Mayor, so if I don't see a road such as line 6 on there, it's an 80-kilometer-an-hour road, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, if that section is not listed, there are sections of line 6 that are listed in those tables, but if the section is not listed, it's 80 kilometers per hour default.
So I'm just thinking in terms of overall speeds for line 6 from west of Highway 12 to Marsh Hill and down to Utica. It's faster to use our municipal roads and our posted speed limits than to use the provincial highway and the regional roads. Do we need to address that in this table, or how should we go about addressing that?
If there are any changes, I would suggest that remember the review of the whole township that we requested early on in our term? That report is coming forth before the summer break. So if you have changes, this is basically getting everything that's existed and has been passed into a bylaw. So if you want changes, and I do too, so I've got a list, but I would suggest that you develop your list and get them to Director Coleman sooner rather than later, because this report is coming forward about the whole review of the township roads. Would that be fair to say, Director Coleman?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, so, yeah, and I have a bunch, and, I'm sure you do too. I'm sure everybody does, but if we could get them to the director before, in the next month or so, then they can be looked at and considered in her report that's coming forward. Fair enough? Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, we have the, did we make an amendment on this one? No. Oh, yeah, we did. It was the change in the motion. So the motion as it is with that extra little bit that I read out. Everybody okay with that? Kind of a mover, please. Councillor Watton, Councillor Ross, all in favor? And we will have to bring forward that bylaw now too, okay? And that takes us to the tennis club lease renewal on page 193. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I'm paging forward, my question is with regards to the term and the length of the lease. I'm just curious as to why we're only pursuing, or why they're only pursuing a one-year lease.
That has to do, I think it's explained there somewhere, that has to do with the fact that we're dealing with the waterfront project. So we don't know what that design is going to be. So I believe the tennis club was in agreement with just continuing this for the end of this year until we know more about a design for the waterfront. Director Coleman, do you, or who would answer that? Okay, JP, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You answered the question.
I nailed it on the head, did I?
As I would have, yes. Yes.
So
Okay.
just for clarity, we're looking that the tennis club could be possibly moving as early as 2021?
It's an open book right now. So we don't know.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The purpose of the extension to December 31 was simply to not predetermine the waterfront study that is ongoing right now. So when we had mentioned that to the representatives from the tennis club, they are fully participating in that waterfront plan and study that's going on right now. So they were fully aware of that and had no concerns whatsoever with extending it until the end of December. In order for that study to be completed, and then in order for recommendations on that study to come forward to council, and then based on those decisions of council with regards to the recommendations brought forward, then we would move forward at that point in time. But this was simply not to predetermine that study and go for an extension longer than that period of time. They were fully in support of that and fine with that. As I mentioned in my report, they just simply stated that if they are not moving, based on council's decisions at that time, they don't want a one-year extension ongoing. They don't want a 1 year, then a 1 year, then a 1 year. They have plans, and it's obviously difficult for them to do capital planning, and staff are fully in support of that as well. So if at the end of the study, it is determined that they're going to be there for the next 5-10 years, we would be bringing forward a recommendation that the lease be extended for that period of time at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, understood? Okay. Councilor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not a question, but an opportunity for a plug, seeing as though you did say the waterfront action plan. I admitted to do this in the announcements, but for the benefit of anyone listening on YouTube still, February 13th, we're holding our second workshop, and we really do need the public's input, and that will help us with our tennis club discussions.
Thank you very much, Councilor Guido, for bringing that forward. That's great. Any other questions on this? Councilor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess this question's for JP. Item 3, page 193, item 3 says the lease is for a nominal fee. Just out of curiosity, what's nominal?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to council, it's $2 by each party.
Okay, so I understand they obviously don't pay very much, which is fine, but then they have to look after, if they want to resurface the courts, for example, that's theirs to do. But the township doesn't pay for that.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council, that's correct. What is our responsibility within that agreement is the fencing. So the outside fencing is the township's responsibility. The rest, including resurfacing the courts and things of that nature, are the responsibility of the tennis club. And I was informed that they are trying to save up for that at this point in time.
Saving up for their $2 or saving up for Sorry, it's getting late. Any other questions? May I have a motion, please, that the report be received and that the amending agreement appended as attachment 1, which extends the lease from the Port Perry Tennis Club till December 31st, 2020 be approved, and that Mayor and Clerk be hereby authorized to sign and execute. Councillor McDougall, Councillor Ross, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to bylaws, we now have to bring forth 9.4.2 regarding the recreation program. And so may I have a motion, please, that bylaw, we have to read it a first and second. Councilor Kiesebrink, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to make the motion that Report Comms 2020-002 Recreation Program Day Camp and Swimming Lesson Refund Policy be received, and that the section 3.4 of the policy be amended and changed from 6 months to 12 months, and that the necessary bylaw as amended be passed to adopt that policy.
Seconder? Councilor Ross? Reading a first and second time. Do we have to read it a third time now? Read it again, please, Council. She did it? Okay. This is new. Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We also have to bring forward 9.4.5, the traffic one that we just discussed a few minutes ago. We have to do that. Okay. Okay, first and second time. May I have a mover, please? That the bylaw 0520 be read a first and second time and finally pass this 27th day of February, January 27th, and so it's 27th day of, okay, there's a typo here. Finally passed this 27th day of January 2020, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal thereto. And the amendment is that the schedules of the proposed bylaw be amended by deleting the road segment, quote, Scugog Line 4, Ashburn Road to west limit of Marsh Hill Road from Schedule O, and adding the road segment to Schedule N to match existing signage. Mover. And read a third time. Councillor Watton. Councillor McDougall. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, that's a first. We didn't amend bylaws before. Okay, so Good for you, council. It's 25 to 9, and we've come to the end of our, no, almost to the end of it. Notice of motion, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor McDougall, that a crossing guard be placed at Simcoe Street and Reach Street for the morning and afternoon school crossing times on a trial basis until June of 2020, and that the need for a crossing guard at Simcoe Street and Reach Street be reassessed based on the township's warrant and reported back to council by the end of June 2020. Councillor Brown, would you like to address your motion?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, first of all, I'd like to thank Director Coleman for her work, as always, in helping me get this, hopefully get this looked after. I've been talking to some residents in the area, and they had a crossing guard while there was construction at Reach and Simcoe, and now they don't anymore, and they're concerned about it. So we would like to extend it until the end of the year, take another count, if I can presume that, and see how many kids are crossing, because it's they that we really have to count, and find out if we have enough to continue it, and hopefully we do. From what I've heard from the residents, they were delighted to have one, and they don't want it gone.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Councillor Guido, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for your notice of motion and putting this forward, and thank you, Director Coleman. I would say one child crossing, in our opinion of safety, warrants a crossing guard there. We fought for them before in previous years, and the residents truly value this, so thank you for putting it forward.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question to Director Coleman. Can you just refresh my memory as to when the last count was taken and the situation of the road, if it was in construction or snow or what have you?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, we did counts, I believe, in November and December of 2019, and the highest number of students we had during that time period was 7 students. There was snow off and on in construction, different stages of construction during that time period, but it was mostly wrapped up in December.
Okay, thank you. And so the new pedestrian counts will be done sometime in this, before the end of June?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillor, we would do the count probably in May when the weather's the nicest, and in advance of us giving us time to prepare the report too.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
I should add, while I have the opportunity, although Director Coleman could do this much better than I, that we need crossing guards here. There is a deficiency of them, if I'm not mistaken. I think we need more of them. So if we can make that public somehow, that would be great.
Director Coleman?
Madam Mayor, and as Councillor was saying, I have troubles if council passes this motion tonight to implement a crossing guard immediately. I have one crossing guard who is retiring at the end of this week, and another one who just started working 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week. So if I put a crossing guard at this location, I would be down to one spare guard who doesn't have a car, so can't get to every location. And the problem with that would be that there's a fair amount of absences from crossing guards, different medical appointments or things come up. And that I would have occasions where I didn't have anybody to put on a regular crossing location. And we usually can't get the notice out quick enough to let people know that. So I would not want to put a crossing guard at Reach and Simcoe until I hire at least one more spare guard. And so if anybody knows anybody that willing to be a crossing guard, please contact us.
Fair enough. If we are going to have a crossing guard in place, we want to make sure there's one every day. Are there any questions? Any other questions, Councillor Ross?
Sorry, if I could just follow up to just what was mentioned by Director Coleman. Would the new crossing guard hire be a replacement for the one that retired, or is this an additional hire on top of that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, right now we have 12 regular guards and 3 spares. And if we have this location, it would be 13 regular guards. And I'd like to have a minimum of 3 spares to cover those absences. We do have 2 staff members that are trained for real emergencies when we have nobody else, but it operates best if I have 3 spares. So it wouldn't be a new position. What we're doing is we're moving current spare guards into the regular positions, and the new people we would hire would start as spares.
Director, can you tell me the last time that council approved of the warrants on this? I'm sorry to not have asked this before.
That's fine. The last warrant study was done in June of 2018, and we made some adjustments at that time.
June of 2018, passed by council.
Yes.
And what is the warrant for the minimum number of students to cross?
At that time, council passed that the minimum number of students would be 12 students to warrant a crossing. The Ontario Traffic Council's minimum warrant is 40 students, I believe, but we set a lower standard for Scugog so that we could
Or
have
a higher standard,
a
so to
higher
speak.
standard. So we have crossing guards at more locations.
So the province says 40?
The guidelines for it say 40, yes.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much. And roughly what does a crossing guard earn in a year? That's township pays?
The cost for a crossing guard for the township is about $10,000 a year.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So deal with this tonight, right? Yeah, okay. So we have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Brown and Councillor McDougall. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor for this trial? That's carried. Thank you very much. No new business or general information. Oh, Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to do a very quick briefing on the coronavirus situation, just to let everyone know that the Public Health Department at the region is closely monitoring it. They have put a facts about sheet out on the Durham.ca website, as well as they've advised that the Public Health Ontario has a website also. And in addition to that, they will be communicating through Facebook and Twitter feeds. So it's kind of just an evolving issue right now, but just wanted to reassure everyone that the Public Health Department at the region is staying on top of it as best they can.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watton. And just further information, I was talking to Regional Chair John Henry at the Polar Plunge, and he said to me that the Department of Health, the Regional Department of Health, is being proactive in addressing this possible concern in Durham region. They're reviewing all of their SARS criteria and procedures and what went wrong, what didn't, and reviewing all that, making sure supplies are in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're well prepared should anything happen with this coronavirus. So good news. No, now we're looking for the confirming bylaw. Confirming bylaw. I have a mover, please, to confirm the proceedings. Councillor Brown. Councillor Kiesebrink. All those in favor? And that's carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido. Councillor Kiesebrink. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Good meeting. Meeting adjourned.